Yes. Oh, can I hear you?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm asking you. Sorry, I did never start the thing, and I was like, I wasn't paying attention to the juices waiting to be admitted to the room. But yeah, so how are you doing?
I think I'm all right. I've got another background for you now. I'm eventually going to see your whole flat, aren't I?
Indeed. Yeah, well, I moved some things around. Um,
I've not
and
seen that corner before, though.
indeed, yeah, indeed. Last time, like the hole in the wall is actually right on the other side of the computer
Yeah.
now. But essentially, last week there was. It seems like one of the neighbors had gotten bed bugs, and
Oh no.
so the landlord decided to, and I was perfectly fine with that, to do a prevention a treatment, on my place. So like they came in and inspected to make sure that there were no bed bugs, but then
No.
did this, and so, but what that required was clearing off all the walls, like all the corners around the walls, because they spritz the corners, I guess, so that the bugs can't come in. Because they sprayed the neighbor's place, and I guess the bugs are gonna like run away. Maybe I don't know. Anyways, they put the treatment here. What that meant was I just had to like, it was like every bookshelf, everything that was, and I'm already not too organized, so everything kind of went in the middle. We'd already had this plan of switching the bedrooms, so my son's bedroom would be at this end of the house, and that would put my bedroom at the other end of the house, uh, and then move some things down to the basement. Like he's got a whole bunch of Lego. He plays Lego. Well, we play Lego, I guess, but it takes up a lot of space. It took up a whole room in the house because it's a city. We're
Right.
building a city with roads and stuff. We decided to move that to the basement. The basement is like what you call a crawl space. Maybe it's maybe 6 feet high, like in terms of head space, but then the same size as the apartment, so a huge, huge space, usually for storage. But I thought, for the kids, for Lego, maybe that's the perfect place for a Lego city. I just, anyways,
And is it dry?
in the basement,
Uh-huh.
there is some issues with humidity, and so right now it is a storage place, which I keep. I don't have a dehumidifier, but I will get one of those because I just basically keep the windows open and keep the air moving constantly down there. So,
Yeah.
anyways, but it's not dry very much. Yeah. Anyhow, so that's why. Yes, you see a new corner, and I am using my son's room because the other place is pretty. It's pretty messy right now. So yes, but
Good.
I get to see your same window.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I can
Uh,
show you a bit around the room. Look, if I turn the monitor, there you go. There's a bit over there, and there's a bit over there.
there's the tour. Well, I saw before it was a little bit more.
I'm a bit blurred now. Look, sorry
Yeah,
about that.
I was gonna say before I could see almost like the titles of the books, but you said
Yeah, that's that,
it was very yeah. You've blurred a little bit now.
I have. I can. There,
Oh,
that's a bit better.
there you come back into focus.
Stupid autofocus.
That's it. I don't like the auto light one. I feel like sometimes I turn my head and then it'll, like I saw the result on the video where it seemed like there was flashing. Like it would almost seem like suddenly there was a burst of light, but really it was an auto light adjust. That's just,
Right.
thinking, oh, it's darker or lighter, depending on, I guess, where I am in the picture. Anyways, yeah, auto adjust things can be annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
But,
I can see by my face it looks like it's really sunny outside, but it's not at all. It's just dark in here and the sun's going down. So
oh, yeah. And it really does. It does look like sun coming through, which it almost do. Well, yeah, like I said, I wasn't really thinking about light again. But no, I remember you saying you put thought into what the background was going to be. Like, does that mean there's specific books there that are meant that mean something or that they're
those
significant?
books there,
Yeah,
yeah, they're all the ones there you can see are Watchtower books, Jehovah's Witness books.
Jehovah's Witness books. Okay.
Yeah. So it's because I've known some JW, so I've read an awful lot of their stuff, so I can
Mhm.
converse with them. But
Okay.
it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I know from that, I know lots of stuff that they don't know. about what they used to teach.
Yeah.
It's they like if you tell the reason I got the books was if you go online, you'll find things that they used to teach, and they'll say, no, that's not true. That's apostate lies.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can physically show them one of their own books that say it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like they can't actually deny it. But they're just trained so well that anything that goes against what they're currently taught is apostate lies.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And that one too, I think was it the White Papers or something like this? Like one of their prophets was a woman named White, I believe.
no, that was
Or that's not Jehovah's Witness. That's
no. I can't remember which group that is, but yeah, I know the.
You know what I mean? Okay, that's the wrong one. Yeah.
This was
Seventh Day
started by.
Adventist. Seventh Day Adventist? No.
I don't know. I don't think it might be, but I don't think it's them because they're very close to being almost like normal Christians, if you see what I mean. Yeah, I know the white thing. Maybe it is the Adventist. I don't know. You're just checking it now.
No, I just trying to.
I'll have a quick check because we need to know.
Yeah.
Just in case. Ellen G. White. Yep, Seventh Day Adventist.
Seventh Day Adventist. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, they were Charles Taze Russell, the person who started it. He never called it Jehovah's Witnesses. He was they were just known as the Bible students then, but he was massively into pyramidology.
Oh, really?
So he started it back in 1874, 1879. But he went to the pyramids. He did all these different measurements, and he proved from the measurements in the pyramids and from some Bible verses that Jesus is coming back in 1914. And so the whole religion was based on the fact that I think it was the end of September the 30th, 1914, Jesus is going to come back.
Right. That was, yeah. Okay. They were the ones that made several predictions. Yeah.
So then on October the 1st, it was like he came back invisibly. And so now what they believe is that Jesus came back in 1914, but he's now in the sky and it's invisible. And it's like, it just does not line up with the Bible. But now Jehovah's Witnesses aren't aware that all this proof, or nearly all this proof, comes from the pyramids.
The proof for the dating, like the time.
Yeah, the dating. Yeah, so because the pyramids were like a real hot topic going back 150 years or so. So yeah, so by using the pyramids and the measurements in the pyramids, all this sort of stuff, and I've got it in the books here, and he's like really, really dogmatic about it. It's 1914, so they've got all these different dates, but the meaning of the dates have since changed. But in 1914, 1915, when it didn't happen, something like 80% or more of the religion left. So they realized it was not real.
But the 20% hung on. Yeah.
And then he died a couple of years later, and there was a power struck, and it was someone called Judge Rutherford took over. And he kind of went along with the same teaching for a while, and then he changed it, then he radically changed it. And he called them Jehovah's Witnesses in early 30s, I think it was, when he coined the phrase. But in the early 30s, he then changed the dates. And then the end was going to come in 1941. And then that didn't happen, of course. And then the end was going to be 1977. And then 1975. And then that didn't happen. And then in one publication, it said the year 2000. And then that didn't happen.
Oh, good.
And yet, unless you speak to an old Jehovah's Witness, they don't know this stuff. They're like, no, it never happened. That's apostate lies. We never said 1975. But I went to a local Kingdom Hall for about a year, and I spoke to a couple of old JWs who remember the 1975 stuff. And I said, so as far as you remember, did they teach that it was going to end in 1975? They're like, oh, yeah, absolutely, they taught that. And yet they're still there. I mean, a load of people left when it didn't happen in 75, a load left in the early 40s when it didn't happen. 1925 was another date, but that wasn't the end of the world. That was just when Moses and David and Abraham were all going to come back. So this mansion called Beth Sarim in California, and they had the title deed set up ready so that when Abraham and David, all these other people come back, it'd be given to them. So that's where they were going to live. But until they came back, Judge Rutherford was living there. So Rutherford was looking after this mansion for when the patriarchs come back, and they never came back. So,
Oh man,
but again, they
that
don't know this either. They just don't know this stuff.
and that just
So
sounds like it just makes it. Oh, it makes it really dirty. Like
yeah,
of
so
course,
they are
just a
told that
grifter.
they're told some of this stuff, and it's made out how wonderful these early people were that did all this stuff, but they're not actually given the details beyond if anyone says anything about this, it's apostate lies. But you're not allowed to research it yourself. You can only research their current literature that they make available. And periodically, every few years, they will take out of circulation some of their books and stuff. You have to get rid of them.
Which, yeah, no, and that kind of control of information. I mean, it exists. I have heard things about those end time predictions and how they have been explained away. Like, just a guy making a calculation. We got it wrong. We got a new calculation. He forgot to carry the three or something.
Yeah,
and
they did briefly change it to 1915, I think.
Or that
But
something did happen, but we didn't recognize what happened. Like it was an invisible.
yeah,
Like
that's
it said
right.
something like
Jesus
that.
came back invisibly.
Invisibly, that's what you said. Yeah.
But what they were actually predicting
Interesting.
was the end of the world. It was Revelation. It was going to be these wars. All the churches are going to, all the other churches that are false churches, like Anglican Church or Catholic, whatever, they're all going to fall away. They're all going to be killed. It's going to be a paradise earth set up in 1914. But now they deny they ever said that. So when you show them, like I have shown some JWs the evidence, how do they? It's very hard for them to deal with it. But they can't leave because their friends and family are in. And if they decide, actually, I don't think this is true, they lose their friends and family.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like a really tough thing. I can imagine that even if you find these documents, leaving would just be, the end of your world, basically. Or not the end, but it would certainly feel like you've lost everything.
But there's something called PIMOs.
Well, I just say that would be something like, we do. I'm sure we all have some kind of cognitive dissonance in there.
Oh yeah.
That the mind just can't accept something, so it just puts blinders on itself. Like even if the governing body says don't do this, I mean Google exists, right? They're not Amish. They could have access, but if going down that path means losing everything, then just don't go down that path. Or it would be logical to not seek it.
But there's something called a PIMO, which stands for physically and mentally out. And there's actually an awful lot of JWs that go through the motion but don't believe it. And so they communicate online, but the reason they're not leaving is they don't want to lose everything.
Right, yeah.
So they're kind of doing the bare minimum to get by. And they have a hierarchy, and there are some that are elders that are PIMO, and there's some working in the headquarters in America that are PIMO. And so they keep leaking information out to the internet, but anonymously. And it's really difficult for the organization because they don't know where it's coming from. They know that they've got moles effectively there now. But the reason their logic is for being PIMO is they want to bring the organization down. Because if the organization was, if you leave, that's fine, you can still see your friends and family, they would just leave quietly. But because they're being blackmailed, effectively, you're going to lose everything if you expose us or if you leave. They're like, there's a good number of them now that are just gradually gaining momentum. So there's going to be another big falling away soon, I think, because it's just so hard to keep denying the stuff.
Yeah. And when things are things like that are clear, which becomes, anyways, that's back to like, what do you say, if the Bible, anyways, I was trying to make a link, something with the link of, they're trying to interpret the same scriptures. And I don't know if Jehovah's Witnesses, it seems like they're head honchos. I don't know what they're talking. What did you call them?
The governing body,
the government body. It's almost like the Pope in that, they're communing with God or in some
It's
sense.
exactly the same.
Like that's...
So God tells them this, what they need to know. Then they call it the spiritual food. I mean, take verses out of context. Their argument for being governing body, when you look at the Bible in context, completely falls down. But of course, JWs don't look at the Bible in context. They look at what they're told to look at and how to look at it. So it's...
But is there scriptural backing to a governing body? Like, how do they excuse that? Or
I understand
justify
their latest translation, they've put in the phrase, I understand, but in a normal Bible, there isn't a phrase governing body. And their arguments, when you look at the Bible, don't add up at all. So they're like, oh no, in the early church, there was a headquarters in Jerusalem and all instructions came out of Jerusalem. But that's not true, because Paul was sent by Antioch to go on his missions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it wasn't headquarters, there's just all these different churches all over the place. And there was absolutely not a headquarters as such. So yeah, it doesn't stack up.
Okay, so
yeah,
really,
they've got so many logical problems.
Okay, yeah. Okay, because that's, as we were talking before, like if you were just to pick up a Bible and read it, would you come to the conclusion that there's a governing body that communes with God,
No,
or that
you could
has a
you'd
connection
find out
somehow?
that you can have a direct relationship with God is what you'd find out. But for them, actually, it's God communicates with the governing body and they'll let people down the way know what's being instructed.
Interesting.
So, which is the same as like the Pope and the priests. It's like you have to go through them. Effectively, they will tell you the rules. So if you think the Bible says one thing and the Pope or governing body say something else, you're wrong and they're right.
Yeah, and I guess there is that kind of, what do they call it? Like the piety. People be pious. Oh, maybe I should just, I had like a, actually, I'm just gonna, should I put that too? I'll send, yeah, sorry. No, I'll just leave it on that computer. But just people, yeah, go ahead.
Right, just get some air in. It's very warm. It's very humid today. It's 27. I'm driving the window open, but sometimes the traffic's a bit noisy. There's not too much out there just now.
Okay, yeah. No, but what I was swinging at, I meant was, that people being pious, people saying, oh yeah, I really have a good relationship with God, as it were. And they'll express it that way. And that me, I growing up, maybe I didn't get that, or at least maybe I did, but I didn't understand what that was. Like, I just didn't feel that relationship. I didn't feel that kind of connection with God. I was going through, I was doing the things that I was told to get to the kind of, to get there. That just wasn't happening. But there were people, again, these higher ups, that they were having that connection. So I can see that if personal connection is possible, and some people are just better at it, and so they end up in church positions, that would give a leadership role of how to, starting from scratch, we'll say. If some people are getting messages and they say, hey, this is how I did it, or some people are having a relationship and they can explain to someone else, this is where I was. That, and then a whole bunch of people that want to, but just haven't had it, I can see how that creates a power structure. Just, you see what I'm saying? Like, just kind of.
And a lot of them would be faking and lying.
That's it.
Yeah.
And we found out that priests can be, just as, that they're not more, is pious the right word? Or more righteous or more good, good people than the rest. Yeah. There's been a lot of proof that might not be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I never got an email from you, by the way, but that's fine. Just letting you know.
No, and I know I was going through it, and one of the ones I had a point on, like contradictions. It was another question that came up in my mind, but then I'm like, I really have to research it maybe before, like rather than just saying it. Like, just
that's a good idea.
A couple ones that, at least just again on a straight reading, seem like they're not going together, and different than the ones like, is there one thief or two thieves, like you say, or is there one person or two people? Like, those ones are pretty easy to explain.
Yeah.
Say, I've got a son, and then later on you say, I got a son and two daughters. Those aren't contradictory. Or no, I have a son, and then later on you say I have two daughters. Those are not contradictory statements. You just have a son and two daughters. That's fine. You might have 10 sons and 10 daughters, right? Like, it just doesn't. So not things like that, but other ones. Um, but yeah, yes, last night I was up and then I kind of finally I crashed. Well, I've got these pills that I take when I'm really having trouble sleeping, but it was like 3 in the morning finally. And I crashed and I got up this morning. It was 11. So I didn't, and then my son was coming at 12. I was like, oh, right, this email. So I haven't started. I kind of sent it to myself and thought, well, maybe I should. But then,
That's all right. I'm happy just for us to just talk. That's fine.
okay, I'll leave the contradictions one for later. But there was a couple ones that came up, maybe more, just more direct, and maybe like what you think about them. I don't know. You might not
Okay.
have the whole thing memorized, of course, but just your understanding of, again from that straight reading, what would again, assuming it's true, what is it saying basically on these topics? That's where I was coming at with all these questions. But so a couple of them, because like I've got like a lot of tattoos. I got most of my body is covered in tattoos. And I was watching this video about a guy just, one of these preachers, one of the evangelical or anyways, very, very boisterous preachers saying how it's the mark of the devil. You mark your skin, it's the mark of the devil. Mark of the devil. You just kept, or you're marking yourself for the devil, and that, I don't know, in some way. But that's it. So tattoos. What does the Bible think about tattoos?
Okay. So in the Old Testament, a lot of people try and trip you up talking about the law, various laws and rules that are given in the Old Testament. But a lot of those were given to the nation of Israel. And the reason they had it was to set them apart from other people. So it was a deliberate thing. So, for example, their keeping of the Sabbath was so that other people wouldn't come in and trade with them on the Sabbath. And they couldn't wear certain combinations of clothes together. But that again was to keep them separate. So it was obvious these are different people. So to try and then apply that to Christians today, you shouldn't, because we're not Israelites living at that time at all. So when it comes to tattoos, what that's about is in Israel, and I suspect other places as well. I was thinking about piercings then. If I can get into piercings, I come back to tattoos. A piercing, if somebody was somebody's servant, so I won't be your servant or slave for say 7 years, but you would treat me well because servants were and slaves were treated very well. At the end of the 7 years, I might decide I want to stay with you forever. And then as a sign, you would then get a nail and drive it through my earlobe into the door. You'd be piercing my ear. But that's because I want to stay with you and I want you to keep looking after me and I'll keep serving you. And that's where piercings come from. So you'll get some Christians saying you shouldn't have piercings because it shows that you belong to the tattoo person who did it. But that's just a complete nonsense. It's like, that was a cultural thing then that had a certain meaning then. It doesn't have that meaning now. It's just body piercing. And with tattoos, I don't remember if tattoos have a significant meaning, but it's like, it's just body art. It's absolutely not a salvation issue. I haven't got any tattoos and I wouldn't want tattoos. No, with a few exceptions, I don't like tattoos. But that's just a personal thing. I don't like body art. I don't like lots of piercings. And you might get some really pretty girl with some nice pierced ears and stuff, but they would also look very pretty without the piercings. So it's like, it doesn't do it for me. And if someone has, like my thing with tattoos, supposing I had a really good dragon drawn on my arm, I didn't draw the dragon. I'm not the dragon. The tattoo artist drew a really nice dragon. I'm just carrying around his artwork. And I paid for it. I paid a tattoo artist so I can carry his artwork around. And it's like, but so I didn't get it. So I got, like, I understand, like I've got a sister and she's got some of her kids' names tattooed on her arms and stuff. It's like, I understand that, or you might have mom or your girlfriend's name. I understand people doing that. I also understand people regret that when they split up with the girlfriend. But yeah, it's just a personal. It might be an Aspie thing. Maybe I can't see it. One exception is you'll get, like in the armed forces, a particular platoon or unit, they go through a certain thing and they'll all get the same tattoo. I completely get that. That completely makes sense. And like if I was part of the platoon, I would totally do that. But that has a particular meaning. Or if even a sporting person, if you're a Man United fan and you've got a Man United logo tattoo, I understand that. because you really like United. So I guess something like that had a real meaning. But there's a club over here, Newcastle United, and there's a striker called Andy Cole years ago, and he was brilliant, got like 30 goals a season, so it's like incredibly good. And so a Newcastle fan got an Andy Cole picture tattooed on his leg one summer, I think it was. Then that summer he moved club to Man United.
Whoops.
It's like, you really don't want to be doing that.
Right, yeah.
Wait until they're dead and their allegiances won't change and then get the tattoo done.
And even then, you got to be careful. There's so many of these celebrities now. They come out even after they're dead. There's much controversy comes out about them.
Oh yeah, but I mean, one thing is just steer clear of any guy that was unmarried. It's like something could come out of the closet there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why was he? I mean, there could be legitimate reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Cliff Richard is probably an exception to the rule, but generally famous guys that they're never known to be with women, that's there could be something bad going on there.
Okay, no, but it answers my thing about, and even about other laws too. I think one of my earlier questions was about that too. You know, the importance of the Old Testament laws.
Right. The point is, if
and I guess you're telling them
if you
that some
could keep
things apply.
the Old Testament law, then you're righteous. But the thing is, it was impossible to keep the law. No human can possibly keep the law. And if you break one of the 10 commandments, you broke the entire law. Mm-hmm. And so time and time again, it's shown in the Bible, it's actually impossible to keep the law.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then Jesus did keep the law. He's the only human that's ever kept the law. Because it's impossible for a normal human to keep it, because you can't possibly not do any of the 10 commandments.
Oh yeah. I can think of some real easy ones to break. Just like coveting itself. You know, like that's just a super easy one to break. Like if coveting is just kind of a desire within yourself, like, oh, that guy's got a nice car. Oops. Commandment broken.
Yeah,
you know?
That's right.
Like it just that's how easy it is. But yeah, no, but yeah, the laws about different things and the meaning of it too. Like you say, to get pierced, and I should have too. That's one of the things I wanted to do, and I was doing it like for part of it. But look up the scripture that at least I can find that refers to it.
Yeah, if you find you really Google it online, then I'll be able to say, okay, what the root is so and so.
Okay, that's what I should do with each of these points then.
But also a lot of things like what the Bible saying, you could say tattoos, piercings, all sorts of things. And pretty much the standard answer that I would give to start with any of them is it's not a salvation issue.
If it's not a salvation issue. And that was actually
a lot of them are not salvation issues. But the thing is, if you are saved and you do have a relationship with Christ, then you naturally wouldn't want to do these bad things. So like you could say, is it okay to drink 2 bottles of wine every night? It's like you wouldn't lose your salvation if you did that. But if you're a Christian and you're saved, you probably wouldn't have the desire. And if you did have the desire, it would really, really bug you that you did have the desire. So you'd pray about it and work hard to no longer have the desire to have 2 bottles of wine every night. But you wouldn't lose your salvation for doing it. So Christians absolutely still sin, but they will get punished for it in this lifetime, and they will feel bad about it. So there'd be things that a non-saved person can do and not feel the least bit guilty. But if I did the same thing, I'd be racked with guilt. Sorry, that was a long monologue.
No, it's interesting. Like if someone was truly saved, then their behaviors would be different.
Yeah, but you wouldn't behave good because you don't lose your salvation. It's because you're saved and because you're so grateful that Jesus died for you. So you could be saved. You don't want to do bad things. And when you do bad things, which you will do, you'd hopefully you would feel really bad about it. Not a fake bad, but a real bad.
Yeah.
And you would try not to do bad things and you'd want to do good things. So So, like, there's a book in the Bible called James that talks all about this, about faith without works and works without faith and stuff. And the point he makes that's often twisted by people is if you are saved, you will do good works, but you're not saved because of your good works. And if someone says they're saved, but there is no good works, maybe they're not actually saved. Because lots of people think they're saved that they're not. And you can tell by their lifestyle. And it's like, yeah, but they're not. It's like, if you were saved, you couldn't do that. You can sin for a short time doing a certain thing, but the point would get reached where it would be impossible for you to carry on doing that.
It makes me think about the point we said last time about, or well, it's been said before at least, and I think it's somewhat what we said last time about, like all works are like dirty rags to, in front of God.
Yeah.
Like all works, whether you go out and smack someone or you go and give them a meal, it's dirty rags.
Yeah.
It's just dirty rags of a different color, but that nothing really. Well, again, that's what you're saying, acts without works. But even if someone, goes to church every day and does all these things, that's just dirty works. They could do everything, they could follow every single law that you're supposed to follow in the Bible. And it's just dirty works or dirty rags. And that's there's nothing in that. Not that there's nothing in that, but the relative difference between a rapist and, just a nice guy in a different country that is not Christian, or someone here that's not Christian. Those are equivalent in the eyes of justice, in the ultimate justice sense.
Neither of them would get you saved, being good or raping people. Neither of those are going to get you saved, but there are, you can see from the Bible, different levels of punishment.
Okay.
That does exist. Because there's something you said, because I say something about that. Yeah, so it's to do with your salvation. Doing these good works are not going to get you saved. So you help an old lady across the meal, or take your neighbor a meal because they're old and it helps them out. That's not going to get you saved, but it still might be a nice thing to do. But as far as does it help you get saved? No, it doesn't. The only reason you can get saved, if you accept the free gift, that Jesus took your place. And so your sins have been paid for. You can't pay for your sins by doing lots of good things. If you've broken the law, but you kept feeding your neighbor, you still broke the law. It's like they won't take that into consideration. Because if you're being tried for a crime, you're being tried for that crime. You're not being... So you stole a car and then you ran over somebody. That's a particular crime. Let's say that's 2 crimes. You can't then say, yeah, but I did my neighbor's garden for the last 10 years. The judge won't say, I didn't know about that. Okay, no, I understand, and let you off. Because then that's not righteous. It's like to be just, for the judge to be just, you might say, okay, you did that for the gardener, but you still have to pay for this crime. And the thing is, we've all sinned against God, and it's impossible for us to pay that debt.
Oh, that brings up another thing also about justice versus mercy. And that they're mutually exclusive.
Right. I
understand. Like mercy is the suspension of justice. And so that mercy is equality, then we can't have perfect justice and perfect mercy at the same time. Like it's one or the other. And so it's like if we've done a crime, like it's like a just thing is like if you've done a crime, you pay, you pay in time. That kind of thing. Like, unless there is that payment, then it is not, justice hasn't been served. Mercy has taken the place. You see what I'm saying? Like, the guy that stole the car and ran over a kid, he gets in front of the judge, and the judge says, okay, you're going to have to go to prison for life. Well, actually, I'm going to pardon you. You can just go ahead, walk out just today. Like if he says just walk out just today, justice hasn't been served, in my mind. Like, again, just as my, I guess, concept of justice in these cases. Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. That then wouldn't be justice. I mean, if they're it's a crude example, but supposing you had some driving offense or parking offences and there was $1,000 fine, and you were broke, but you have to pay the court $1,000. If somebody else says, "Look, I'll pay the $1,000," you're off. You're scot-free. It's been paid. But the thing is, the crime for your life and the sins you've done is more than $1,000. Nobody else can pay it. But the point is, because Jesus lived a perfect life, he has completely paid for it. So by swapping places with him, justice is still done, because all the bad things you've done wrong, Jesus already took the full punishment for that on the cross. It wasn't the nails going through his hand and getting whipped and stuff. That wasn't the punishment. The punishment was facing the wrath of God, which is something that you really can't do. So God's full wrath was poured out on Jesus when he was on the cross.
That was actually another question that came up about that substitution, as it were. And as you said, like there's this sin that deserves infinite punishment. In each individual case of someone who sinned, which is like every human, that it deserves infinite punishment. So that sin deserves infinite punishment, and that being righteous, that deserves zero punishment. And so that all these sins, as you said, like when God sees us now, we've been given the righteousness of Jesus in order to be in front of God. But then on the opposite side, it's like, well, Jesus took the full punishment, as you said. But the full punishment for all these sinners was an infinity in hell.
Well,
and so Jesus didn't take that punishment. It seems like he wasn't.
Well, I don't think the word infinity is in the Bible. I mean, it's a punishment more than we can take. And no, you're right. Jesus didn't go to hell. But he faced and he took on the full wrath of God and the full separation from God. So he did take that, but you won't find in the Bible. There is lots about the burning lake and wailing and gnashing of teeth and stuff about it in the Bible, and the sort of people that go there. But that's like a permanent separation then from God.
I had my own ideas on hell, but that answers it. It's just saying that there's full wrath of God. The infinite wrath. Maybe it's like not an infinite amount of time. Could happen in like a second. Like he just comes in and just yells at Jesus like only God can. Or whatever. Not yells at it. It's a silly analogy, but just that he gets the full wrath, which is like an infinite wrath. And again, just going by what Scripture is saying. So this is while he's on the cross, or was it in the 3 days? Or no?
No, it was on the cross, and then when he was raised from the dead, that was a sign that he had completely. Well, he paid the price at the point of dying, but being raised again showed that God accepted the sacrifice effectively, and it had been paid in full. Like when Jesus was on the cross and said, "It is finished," he said that before he died. Okay. At that point, it was completely paid. Okay, so he didn't then go to hell, or didn't go to hell and get punished. There wasn't anything after that point. It is finished at that point. And my understanding is of the phrase "it is finished." That is the phrase that was used when there was like a ledger with debt or whatever else on. When the debt was paid in full, there was a certain phrase which was the equivalent of "it is finished." So Jesus saying that was saying the debt has been paid in full. So that was the point of that.
Okay. No, that's it. So that's when the punishment was taken. Like I say, that's it. It was a question that came up the other time, like it just seemed. It seemed two different things, but it was seeming like it was. Anyways, a curiosity for me. So that he'd taken the full wrath of God, and then on the cross he'd said it was finished, and that was when the price had been paid.
Yeah, when he'd said that, at that point it had been completely done, and then he says it gave up the ghost. At that point he died. And then there's lots of evidence to show that he really was died. You get some people talking about a fainting theory, but that's completely not possible.
The fainting
So
theory. Yeah, that's kind of
I was like,
the
no, how about
Muslim. I
no?
think the Muslim take on it because
No, I think that
Jesus
what
exists in the
my
Quran, but as like a prophet,
yeah, he's a prophet. My
and he
understanding of
didn't quite
their
die or
explanation
something.
of Jesus is somebody else took his place on the cross. It wasn't Jesus that was crucified. It
Oh,
was
okay.
somebody else.
Because I've heard a couple different things but in the end, the Quran says he didn't die that day. So something happened to
Yeah.
either he got replaced by a twin or a lookalike, or it doesn't have to be a lookalike. I'm sure someone that gets beaten pretty bad. One looks a lot like the other. You got
Yeah.
a thing of thorns, your face is all bleedy, and everyone has a beard back then, anyways. So, but no, I'm being silly. But I see what you mean. Like that, it does specifically say that he died on the cross. So
Yeah.
we're not questioning that. What page was that? But yeah, so do you have to go at a certain time to do
Now
it?
I can keep going. I need to watch the light. And are you recording this out of interest?
I hope so. Yeah, yeah, it's recording.
It's fine. I don't. It's up to you. I don't mind if you make this public. I mean, if you make it public and give it the right tags, people will leave comments. You will get some hate, and you'll get some love, and you get some questions,
Yeah.
and you get some adverts for Bitcoin. So
All right. Yeah. No. And at this point, if I make it public, it would just be as I'll say as is.
yeah, it'd just be Aspie's talking about the Bible and just upload it. Say, look,
I just
want to watch
like
it again.
it would be pretty rough. Like it'd just be kind of maybe I could put a title card at the beginning.
Yeah.
There might, and I did try to do that with a couple episodes with us discussions with Frank, and only maybe did it for maybe 3 or 4 episodes or something before I got tired of it. But just listening an episode and seeing where there's kind of a natural cutoff between topics, and say now we're talking about
Right.
I don't know, like school, we go through some of these different topics about cleaning the apartment. Let's throw that in the.
I can hear the cat meowing. She's a very needy cat, and she misses the girls. So
Okay,
so I don't exist apart from the family away, and then suddenly she loves me and wants to be with me. But like several times a day, she'd come in here meowing and want a bit of fussing and attention.
Just this, yeah.
But she'll run away in a minute. She's not happy here. Let's go on then. You go away. That's why I can't be with you.
Gets a little bit. That's all she needed. Was a couple. Anyways, yeah, cats are weird like this, but they're very individualistic. The whole thing about anyways, that's a whole other thing. The kind of generalizations of dogs and how they approach relationships versus cats. You have the kind of more selfish, more altruistic, or just looking out for number one, and the dog is just well, I mean the dog. Anyways, different things, but that's good. Okay, sorry, I was so yeah to record. What was I gonna say? Yeah, like there's some maybe I'd put it up public, or maybe I'd cut it up into pieces first, because I don't think anyone really wants to watch an hour and a half of random.
Well, they might. They might just play it as they fall asleep. Just have it playing. If they fall asleep, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine.
It could be, yeah. And then, all right, well, no, we can work on that. Like,
we've already got a title.
Right. Well, a title for this. Yeah. Okay.
The show with no audience.
The show with no audience.
I don't mind you want to choose something better than that, but
it's a good one for now.
Need to check it doesn't exist. If it doesn't, that's all right.
True. That's true. So many times I think like, oh, this is going to be an interesting idea, but then someone has done it before. But yeah, no, okay, yeah, no, the show with no audience. And I could do up like a quick, I don't know, like I'm not great at graphic design or
An
anything, but
empty
just something
theater,
new,
yeah.
just something that
Two
says.
weirdos on a stage with an empty theater. That'd do it.
I like that one too. Two weirdos in an empty theater. Two weirdos on stage in an empty theater. That could be like that could be the tagline. Anyways, two. But okay, no, I could put them up, and like with different tags. And I have heard that before. Like people were talking about, you can hire people to help you with your tags, just tags and hashtags, and that'll get things, more noticed. That'll put it up on
Yeah.
put up more eyeballs. I think we just play around with it ourselves.
You just
But
need to pick the popular words. So it'd be things like Aspie, gospel, Asperger's syndrome, what must I do to be saved, salvation. You can just be doing all these sort of words and you'll get some hits, I guess. Something you can do is you can see tags of other videos. So if you might think this is Aspie's talking about the gospel or Aspie's talking about the Bible or what does the Bible say, just type that in, wherever the top video is, see what their tags are and copy
yeah,
any of
yeah.
those that you can. I mean, if one of the tags is Billy Graham, you don't want to copy that, but any tags that you legitimately can copy. And maybe I'd make the last tag maybe Midnight Mule just in case someone looks for
that. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Cross advertising.
No. Well, I'm not putting any. I'll let you put all this up on your channel. That's
and
fine.
I remember thinking because maybe not yours. I saw a bit. Oops, I can't see it. A little bit. Just the way that oopsie, now I've really done it, haven't I? Get away from there. Sorry, I'm trying to minimize, maximize. Just the way that the screen is framed. You see my full name. I don't know. I guess I should change my name on it. I don't know. And I could see.
Yeah, you're right. My name's on there, isn't it? Yeah.
Probably the background. Like if I leave the video as is and I don't do much editing, or even if I do editing, I can put like a little block in front of that. You know what I mean? Like there's a way that
and
I
maybe
can make it so our names.
Like the last 10 minutes of conversation, you might want to actually cut that out because that is a bit dull for anyone else, probably.
And cut it. Yeah, I think there's something. Like I said, when I'm talking about I was talking about my apartment. I mean, it's not super interesting. It's not topical, but it'll be on the not bloopers, but
yeah. I have a bloopers reel and put all this stuff on that. That's fine.
Goodness, okay. Yeah, no, and I think I will do. Yeah, I'll go through that. And I just from past experience, I just know it takes such a long time to go through and cut it up into pieces. Like I'll listen to it once and mark down, just timestamps and approximate themes. I think that would probably work to cut it there. In the end, when I cut it up, like I wouldn't just cut it in the middle. There'd be a little bit of overlap. Like sometimes a thing would just be you need the transition in and almost the transition out. And I don't know if I was, pick approximate. Anyways, you see what I'm saying. But I'll go through some. But if you wanted to go through them and watch a video and say,
well, I've not recorded. I've not recorded this one at all. If you want me to do one of them, I could do.
I just mean like there's a couple stages. Like there's the editing stage, actually cutting the videos, but then there's the stage of deciding where to cut it. And sometimes I would have to watch almost the whole video at least twice, like once to kind of just get the general gist of what we were talking about, if to remember that, and to find approximate cutting points. And then the other one is like I'll listen a couple times. I end up watching like a whole video at least 2 times, I think. And then I get into actually cutting it up. So like I say, if you watched anyone that we posted and say, oh, if you could cut out this section, that was kind of an interesting bit on X, Y, or Z topic. If you wanted, like you said, to cut out some of this.
If it helps you, I could have a go there. It'd be massive to get the file to me, but if you put it somewhere, I'd be able to download it, I guess.
But just to watch it, I mean, like you could watch it on YouTube and then send me kind of the beginning and end. Just tell me what the beginning and end point was, and then with my software, I can download.
What editing software do you use?
I use Power Director. And
Okay.
it's one that it was simple. I had it on my phone. I didn't have a computer for a long time, and I really liked it how simple it was, and it had all the things that I needed. I don't do much fancy stuff, and I got the version on
No.
the computer when I got the computer this winter. I find it just way too complicated. I actually prefer to download things onto my phone and do it that way
Right.
than to have the full screen and all the options because
Yeah.
it was just
Okay.
I wasn't getting it right anyways. But
I could put if I do like a 10-minute video on Midnight Mule, that could easily be 4 or 5 hours work. It's
yeah,
ridiculous how much work it is.
because I see how you put effort into like your title screens and everything. I was so surprised when I started doing it. But yeah, 10 minutes could equal like 4 or 5 hours.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
It was amazing. I thought, wow. So that's why if you go to my channel, it's just a lot of just raw videos. This is nothing but raw videos. Oh my! If you see a couple that I worked on, that was that 4 or 5 hours per. Oh, just too much time. Too much time.
The thing to do is get 1,000 subscribers, then we can just live stream. And it's like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's what you need. Like I see people live stream, but
It might
that's
be 2,000. I think it's 1,000 to get revenue from adverts, and then 2,000 to be able to live stream. I think that's what the numbers were like a year ago or so when I checked.
okay. And but it's easier to live stream. You say, like or
Well, the thing is, if you live stream, don't bother editing. You just tell people, oh, we're going to be live streaming at 9 o'clock. And then we
and
just start chatting for an hour or two. And some people are coming and go out, they leave comments. And
okay,
then
yeah.
then you just make it live. Say, I'm not going to edit that. Just put it up.
Okay, yeah, I see. Well, we can cross that bridge when we come to it, I suppose. 2,000. I remember getting like, well, I've lost a couple subscribers. I looked at my thing. I used to have 34. I have 32 now. My goodness, I'm like, that's like, that's a big chunk. It's like 6% of my 6% decline this month in subscriber. No, it's just silly. But yeah, anyways, and maybe it would take because I always wonder if I should just pile them onto the stuff that I've already got done. Probably okay. Like just put it onto the same channel that I already have that has some pretty bad sign language videos, has some other stuff, maybe discussions with Frank, but I could start a new section on that same thing. Like just a show with no audience. Two Aspies on
Yeah.
stage in an empty theater. That's it. But yeah, okay, sorry, that was just kind of yeah, you were asking about recording. Then so this part of the video
Then
we
we
can
got
just
sidetracked for half an hour. Yeah.
we could take it
That was the intermission.
into that's it. What? That's too many papers in front of me. Political
And just putting a
allegiances.
fan on here. Can you hear the fan or not?
No,
That's cool.
it's good. It was actually yesterday or last night. Probably one of my things when I was up was looking up microphones, like a decent microphone like yours. You know, the one that kind of sits in front of you and it
Yeah.
captures the noise here, and it's better at perhaps taking off noise elsewhere. And there was another thing about the echoes. You know that if you don't have the proper sound stage, then you can get echoes. There's one guy was doing. He had a setup, and it was just like a frame, and he would put a bunch of towels in it, like just hang a bunch of towels in it, and so it could be a temporary thing, and you kind of put it like out of view, like I guess on the sides and maybe in front, to create
Right.
yourself. It doesn't have to be huge either. Like maybe I don't know what that is wide, 3 feet wide, and then I'm 3 feet away from the wall, so like 3 feet by 3 feet, and then basically just a clothes rack that you hang towels on, and
Yeah.
that does wonders for absorbing sound. He created a nice one and he tested it against like this high end stuff. But this is what he did was like bolted like 6 or 8 towels together, like or in a frame, and he
Right.
showed how that thing was more soundproof than this special sound foam squares that people get. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But but
You can. Something that's cheap to use is, I don't know if you get them in Canada, but over here you can get egg trays. If you buy like a dozen eggs, and because it's all knobbly, that just completely breaks the sound waves. So that's like what they have in these sound studios. So just put egg trays all around your wall, and it'd completely kill the echo.
I think it's if there's some simple solutions like that, like just simple things, and something that I could really put up and take down. I would hope that even if it was egg trays or whatnot, I'm imagining this frame like kind of that's foldable, like I could kind of fold it.
Yeah.
Or I liked the idea of the clothes rack with towels on it too. So like, that just be, every laundry day I'll do an episode and it'll be set up. But yeah, no, okay. So that's technical details out of the way. And but yeah, and with time, like we're pretty amateurish now, as you say. But someone started
another 10 years, maybe we'll hit 2000.
That's it. But that's well. Anyways, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you watch those things. There's some channels, that to just suddenly take off. It just takes just a couple things or one video that just strikes people as interesting, and then whoops, now
it's when it gets shared. So I think I had less than 100 subscribers, and then in the course of about a week or so, it went up to over 300, and it was just one or two people must have shared my video on a certain platform, and then their friend were watching it, and it just, I know 300 is not a lot, but the climb was massive.
Yeah.
Just suddenly.
Interesting. And that might have been like, when I discovered your channel, maybe it was around that time. Maybe they just, they popped it up there as something interesting. I was already looking into a lot of different things about autism and Asperger's. So, kind of Google knew what I was thinking about. But then it chose your channel to put up. And I don't know. I don't remember what your subscriber count was at that time, but it was probably due to that. Yeah, like you don't get shown to people's eyeballs unless you had at least some semblance of success.
But I'll also I'm on different Aspie Facebook groups, and maybe 1 in 3 videos I'll post at some point in a link on an Aspie group. So it's not just all self-promotion stuff. But if there's a conversation about small talk in an Aspie group, I might post a link to my small talk video, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't do a, hi guys, I've just made this video about blah, blah, go and watch it. I don't do that.
No. But the people, I think that those that are really looking to grow, as in terms of channels, they'd be more shameless about that kind of thing, I think, or shameless about going into different spaces, whereas otherwise they wouldn't. I heard one, and I think maybe it'll still work as a strategy, but where you buy a lot of YouTube ads, or you buy YouTube ads, and they put it on Aspie videos, or you can't choose that level of detail, but you could think of religious videos, or like you're allowed to kind of hyper focus your advertising and spend $1,000, and then get once people see it and like, oh, that might be interesting, and you get enough people to click on it. That's how a channel can grow, at least in the start. And then, there's once you have 1,000 people, maybe only 50 of them are going to share. But then those 50 shares, that's a multiplying effect. Whereas if you have 100 and only 5 of them share, that's a slower rate of growth. I mean, and I say 1,000, I don't know how much these ads cost, but I know that they're not free, obviously, but it's a way of growing that seems to be a fairly effective way. Or one of these, there's people that you hire and say, how can we get out there? What's our best strategies, marketing, timing, anyways.
And there are lots of YouTube videos about how to grow on YouTube, so you can get free information as well.
Indeed. Yeah, it's true. I think that for me, and I said it in the past for others, just like I'd rather be more, at least grassroots and kind of waiting on procrastinating all these things, but just like, okay, once I'm get ready for it, once I'm ready for it, then maybe I would throw it in, throw all these, throw everything at it. Like the microphone, like the sound stage, like the, different tags and whatnot. But I could start with the tags. That's an easy enough thing. You just add tags to a video that's already existing. Cutting it into shorter formats so that it's more digestible. I think that'll probably help the viewer count too.
Yes, well, something that some people do is they have like a 2-hour show, but they'll also put up a 10-minute segment of the 2-hour show, and it will link to the 2 hour show. So if you like that, you can watch the whole show. Because what I like doing is I like playing really long videos, and then I'll do something else while I'm listening to the video.
Mm-hmm.
But other times I just want a little 5-minute snippet of something. So it does kind of depend.
Yeah, indeed. I've seen that too. Like the people who do like a TikTok version, or like you say, just the highlights version. Anyway, it takes another 5 hours of editing, perhaps, for a 10-second video. No, but it's but not impossible. And I think there will be a time when we'll be more efficient at doing that. You know, that instead of 4 hours, it takes 1 hour. Still not perfect.
Well, it might be at the point of recording. Think that was interesting. Just do a little mark now, and so you just know roughly these might be interesting points.
Indeed, and I like your idea of really having a topic, so that today we are talking about this, you know, and if there was a list of questions or a list of things, like, you know, each time I was going through, I'm like, wow, that could be an episode, you know, just on discussing how.
That's a big bed bug.
It was like a motorbike just started up outside. Do you hear that? It's pretty loud.
Yeah.
It's going away though. That just having that pre-planning, that we would be topical, that in itself would be make it easier on the editing end, rather than just a free form kind of, we're kind of talking about something. That if it was, okay, today we're talking about, I don't know, what did we say, like justice versus mercy, you know, like that would be, say, the topic, just, or you know, to have that, I think that's a good idea. I think that would help us out. And timers, like say, we're going to talk for 15 minutes on this. Like, I don't know, like here's your 3-minute opening, 3-minute opening. Not something
that would
like
be interesting. That's kind of like a debate format, and we're not really debating.
No, that's true. Yeah.
When you said justice, just as a sidetrack, that made me think of Justin. When is the election?
Oh goodness, I know this weekend it's early voting. I have my voter card somewhere.
That might be 2 weeks' time then.
Yeah, probably at the end of the month. Yeah.
Right.
20. I think it's on a.
Do you know what the current polls are suggesting? Is it like he's ahead, but not by much?
I'm not even sure. Yeah, no, I'll look it up quickly. That's something I should be following.
You should know it because of your job.
And yeah, that's it too. I like. And I tell people, like, what I do, I'm doing the math behind different algorithms, that I rarely look at the results of what I produce. Okay, week-to-week polling. That was yesterday.
I'm looking at the odds now.
And the odds. Oh, yeah, you should go to the odds one. It's true.
Whoops. Trudeau's no longer favorite. What is this?
Oh, yeah, I'd seen something about that. It was like, because he was the one that called the election. He thought he was calling the election at a good time where he had a chance of winning more seats. And actually, it might be backfiring on him.
It looks, this page I'm on is like the Conservative Party's marginally ahead of him. Gosh.
Yeah. Here they're on a dead heat. But if it says percentage-wise, those are somewhat deceiving in Canada. That, you know, like the percentage of the national electorate doesn't match up well with the percentage of actual seats in the House of Parliament. So whereas, like, the one I'm looking at, you know, what would you like to vote for? 50. Anyways, like something like the Green Party would tend to have, you know, fairly decent percentage-wise. Give me one of these ones. Say, this one says, you know, the Green parties are at 5%, say. But at 5% in our parliament has, oh goodness, 324? 300? I think 318, 300, in the 300s, number of seats. So at 5%, 300, they should have about 15 seats, say.
Right.
You know, but they end up usually with 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Whereas if a party gets around like 40% mark, they'll probably have a majority of the seats in Parliament. But the way that it's
Yeah.
distributed, the conservatives and the liberals have somewhat of an advantage because of how their votes are distributed. The conservatives sometimes it gives and takes, right? But anyhow, so right now, yeah, I also see the conservatives pulling ahead.
So don't tell me how you're going to vote, but do you know how you're going to vote?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good idea. There might be some things that change my mind, but at this point, I think I'm probably fairly well decided. I'm probably decided. Let's see, decided on how I'm going to
Yeah.
go. I tend to vote, so I won't look perhaps at the every detail of every policy. I get in general an idea of kind of, I look at the stuff to see what each one is pushing, what each one is, the exact policies that they say, this time we're going to do this time we're going to do that. And also, and more importantly to me is more the foundations, the ideological foundations of where they stand, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Because I just feel it's more interesting. Though, yeah, there's sometimes, one party will come up and they've got some real bonehead candidate in the background that's just doesn't represent the movement, as it were, but definitely can turn people off. Or the other way
Yeah.
around, too. You can turn people on. Someone who's just very, very charismatic. But I think those kind of ways of making decisions could probably lead to something that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I do. I feel like I know who I would vote for, or who I will vote for. Hmm. But yeah, because and my allegiances, I suppose, like generally, because we have the different levels of government. We have the provincial, federal, well, municipal, provincial, federal. That's the three main ones. And for me, the most important is municipal. Like that.
Right.
If they change some policy on parking, on when they're going to pick up garbage, on fines or whatever, that'll affect me every day. And then provincial is next to me, and the next most important. So the things that they
Yeah.
do, they affect me, but it takes some time, or the policies are a little bit more removed. And the federal government,
Yeah.
once again, they're the ones that really affect my life, day to day at least, the least. And so I
And
feel
can
like
the
oftentimes we put the order of importance in the wrong direction. I think federal first, then provincial, then municipal. Whereas for me, it's like, no, community first, and then country second, as it
but
were.
can federal override municipal? Can municipal override federal?
There's always like kind of different, we'll say, power struggles at different in different situations. Like by
Right.
our
But like
constitution. Yeah, go ahead.
if we take a topical subject, so if Justin says you have to wear masks when you're outside, can your local guy say we don't care about masks, you don't have to wear masks? Or does he have to say you have to wear masks?
Well, they do it like there is kind of, we'll say, provincial rights, provincial things, and healthcare is one of them. That's part of the provincial mandate. But what
Right.
happened recently was that the federal government says, look, we need to. I think it was about vaccines actually. Is either vaccine mandates or vaccine passports. Well, maybe it's just vaccine passports.
Right.
And the federal government says, look, we really need vaccine passports. So any province that takes up vaccine passports, we're going to give you $1 billion. If you don't do it, we're not going to give you $1 billion. So that kind of thing. Similar thing with like transportation. Another one that's perhaps more municipal.
Yeah.
Whereas they'll go to the provincial and they'll go to the federal government for funding. Essentially, it's like but the federal then the dollars come with ties, come with
Yes.
strings attached. I mean,
Yeah.
so that they don't directly have control in a lot of sectors, but they can exert control because in some ways they're the purse strings of a lot of the money, and that's
Yeah.
again for me that's problematic, in that I would rather perhaps a smaller federal government in those things. Like you send $1 to the government and they spend it on a provincial thing, say, it becomes 60 cents in that transaction from me to the
Yeah.
government to the so you lose 40% in administrative costs Whereas if I send it straight to the province, now you lose 20% in admit. Say every step you lose 20%.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
inefficient for me to send federal government to the federal money to the federal government to spend on municipal things. That's just, it doesn't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense. So that's in a very big nutshell where I'm at. But yeah,
We got a bit sidetracked. Sorry about that. That's about the last 40 or 50 minutes. Then we've been off topic.
whoops. And there was okay, getting back, because there was some things we did talk about, politics versus religion. And so one of the things that I came up actually was really that, like you mentioned how maybe it was, or maybe it was, actually that could have been an aside as well. We were probably off topic then too, just trying to bring it back to the Bible. Oh, we did bring it back to the Bible a bit in terms of, what the power structure that the Bible would say recommend, even within a church. But then we could apply that maybe to a community or
Yeah.
society, whereas it's like, you talk about it, teach someone to fish rather than giving them a fish, or like
Yeah.
if you have two cloaks, you're better to give one of your cloaks than to give your cloak to the government, and then the government gives the cloak to someone else. Like you're going to lose 20% of that cloak. It's going to come back with like the arms ripped off or something like that.
Yeah.
So we were actually coming to like somewhat. So maybe we're kind of on topic there with politics and how to distribute power, as it were, versus
Yeah.
religion. So maybe we could.
Well, the New Testament says about respecting authority. So you should, as long as it doesn't go against what the Bible teaches, then you should do what the authorities say. So you should be under their authority. If you're a soldier, be happy you're a soldier, but don't be brutal with it. Don't go beating people up and stuff. If you're a slave, be content as a slave. If you have the chance to be free, then be free. And to recognize that there is a structure. There's no room for like rebellion, as in a revolution. Like if ignoring things that go against the Bible. So if there was like what the Nazis were doing in Germany, that would be a legitimate reason to disobey the authorities. But if you just don't like a new tax they're bringing in, that wouldn't be a reason to go against them, I guess. Well, it's just like, I mean, clearly, if you knew what the Nazis were doing morally, that's so against the Bible, rounding up the gypsies and the Jews and the disabled people and killing them. That's a no-brainer. Of course, you don't go along with that. But they're 5% of the council tax. You might not like it. Legally, you can write to your local MP and say, I'm not happy about this 5%. Well, the MPs don't do the council, but you could write to your local councillor and say, I'm not happy with a 5% hike in tax, but you shouldn't refuse to pay the tax. In this country, you're allowed to protest. So it's fine to go on a protest march, as long as it's all legal, to say you're not happy about the new tax.
Interesting. Yeah, I do remember a passage that essentially said, you got to obey your local government. That the local government, in some sense, was put there by God to do something, and so in that sense,
right,
you should, he put them there for certain reasons. So let them do their thing. But then, how do you? Or so you said the exception being Nazi Germany, say.
For example, there would be
how do we not? How do we know that that's not part of a plan? Like like wiping out the Amalekites or something. Like there's a whole Sodom and Gomorrah. They just needed to be wiped out. It's terrible.
Well, it is
all
part of a plan, but you don't want to be part of it. So, like, I mean, the plan might be as simple as you're in Germany in the 1930s. You're a Jew. You can see what's going on, and you decide to go west, to go to Britain or America or Canada or something like that. And that is the action you take, and you can legally do that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's obvious, but you've got a moral duty. There's a Jewish thing apparently where preserving life is like a fundamental thing that overrides all the other rules anyway. So there might be a rule about you shouldn't do this, but if it's about preserving a life, then you preserve the life, and that is more important. So, yeah.
So it's like you say, like paying your taxes is different than harboring Jewish people in the Second World War. Like, whereas, harboring Jewish people, that's totally against the law in Nazi Germany. It's like
but then you would have But then you would accept the law in as much as if you get found out, you're going to get shot. So you are still under the law. And if you get found out you are shot, you're still under the local law. You're just disobeying the law.
Disobeying it. But in that sense, being like not being a good Christian. Well, like you say, a different way of putting it. Like, wow, you're preserving life. That's being a good Christian. But you're going against the government's rules, which we're not supposed to do. Anyways, I'll put that in in a possible contradiction category.
So it's like with the mask thing. There's some places in the world masks are mandatory. Some places it's not. Some places it's mandatory, but you can be exempt. And it's like, as a Christian, you may have a certain viewpoint, but you should actually go along with what the local law is, but not if it's going to cause issues. Like if there were no exceptions, but actually wearing a mask because you're asthmatic is really, really bad for you, you would simply not wear a mask. But then you would also accept the consequences that you're going to get fined for not wearing a mask. But it's like, but I can't wear a mask. So that would then be going along with the law.
Yeah, indeed. Like if it's a choice between, like you say, if I wear a mask, I'll suffocate to death. But it's the law that everyone has to wear a mask. So it's like, dang, I follow the law and suffocate to death? Like it's and indeed, like how to reconcile those two things. And I guess that's what I say. Like I say, maybe it's like perhaps perceived contradictions or things that seem to contradict, and how to justify them. Again, as we're doing, assuming that it is all true. Just how to reconcile like those 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of come up with, I suppose, real world examples.
Indeed, and I've got to like I said, get back to the actual, the actual verses. Go actually back, chapter and verse. What is it saying? I say this is what it says. You have to follow the government, but I'm sure there's a lot more around that passage than just that. But no, that's interesting. So it's like so it is where religion and politics do cross over. And so then even if you're living in, communist China, well, maybe that's not a good example because I don't think they really like religious people, but somewhere that's very socialist, but also very, just allows religion unpersecuted, but someplace that's very socialist. Well, I mean, England is pretty socialist, relatively
England,
speaking.
England's kind of, but I mean, there are lots of rules over here. I guess it's a bit like if the Bible's like your parents, without knowing what your parents are like, and society's like school, the teachers. So your mum says one thing, your teacher says something else. What your mum says overrides it. Like, if your mum said you have to eat carrots because whatever, and your teacher says, oh, carrots aren't very good because this, that, or the other, you do what your mum says, not what your teacher says. And your mum can put bigger consequences on you than your teacher can put on you anyway. Yeah. And if your mum and teacher had a discussion or an argument, your mum would win. And your mum has the authority to remove you from that school, put you in another school. Your teacher can't remove you from your mum and give you to another mum.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible does say, this is me paraphrasing here, Jesus says that rather than fear man who can kill the body, you should fear the one who can kill the body and then afterwards can kill the soul. So it's like, you shouldn't fear man.
Mm-hmm.
So if your government say, unless you bow down to this image of the beast we've made, you're going to be locked up. You shouldn't fear them. You just get locked up, but don't fear them. It's like, well, that's just what the rules are then.
Mm-hmm. And then, well, indeed, I suppose that's even the case if you get put in front of the German firing squad. But it's like, oh, that's those rules. But there's a better place coming. Right after this is over. I guess
Yeah.
and you're thinking about your analogy with your parents, but in my mind, like where I'm trying to get past or trying to get like again to reconcile is like if your mom says you must absolutely listen to everything your teacher says, whatever your teacher says, that goes, and then the teacher says everyone's got to chop off their left finger, but then you go back home and it says your mom says, yeah, no, your body belongs, and I'm trying, really kind of what God is saying now, but your body belongs to me, not to yourself. So don't
Yeah.
tell me my connection is unstable. That
Yeah. You are a
then
bit jumpy about.
it's a bit jumpy, but it's just that kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, but the first thing you told me to do was always listen to my teacher, without exception. Which
Yeah.
again, maybe is not what the Bible is saying. But if mom says you must always listen to the teacher without exception, except for this exception, you know what I mean? Like those, it's kind of
Yeah.
how to justify that.
You'd have to, I guess, find a real world example, a real Bible example, because now we're getting off to an interesting analogy, but it was a bit of an extreme analogy. I mean, what would happen to the teacher who said, chop your finger off? It's like,
Yeah, I guess well, yeah, and I really got to get that Bible passage clear too. But indeed, like your example of the mask mandate for the asthmatic or the or effectively a good Christian in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Like what you should do. You should just say like, oh, you know what, that's the way things are. We're all going to end up in a better place. Gas chamber is nothing. It's nothing compared to, well, if you're not Christian, like kind of what comes later. You know what I mean? So just live and let die kind of thing.
yeah.
Ours is not to wonder why, but yeah, like I say, I'm building on a big assumption of what the Bible is saying about how you must obey your government, which it might not be at all. Yeah.
Well, you're under their authority, but if the government might say something is legal and fine, but the Bible says don't do that, then you go with the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on things that, yeah, 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 it would be like that. Like it would be something like, if it was to say that you must obey the government, and the government mandates that everyone eats pork, or imagines everyone in Israel eats pork and wears mixed fabrics, like that, like but the people of Israel. I mean, just because
Yeah.
that's what we mentioned earlier.
But that was also a
But
specific time as well. But yeah.
for the exact, yeah, but like imagining it was at that time and place, and the again, you can't really mandate wearing mixed fabrics, but that they could go back to the Bible and say, no, our Bible says that's one of our laws. Really, really tough to follow them all, but we're going to give it a go. So even though you say we must eat pork, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah. So the verse I think you're thinking of was Romans 13. So verse 1 and 2. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. That's verse 1. Verse 2. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. And it's also like in Canada, let's say, so you're under whatever Justin says, but if the Russians come across to Alaska and invade Canada and they have some outrageous rules you don't like, you need to think, well, am I under Canadian rule? Am I under Russian rule here? It's like under Canadian rule, it might be you're expected to fight, but then under Russian rule, you should give up. And then, so there is the question of who's actually got the authority. So you will get people assuming authority, and it's like, but have they actually got that authority? So there's been cases over here, like in Scotland, during last year, they banned you're not allowed to meet in church. You can't have church service. And so all churches had to stop meeting. And then somebody took it to court, and the court actually said the government had overreached. They didn't have the authority to ban people meeting in church, and it's okay to meet in church.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, they were obeying the government, but then somebody was like, yeah, but the government's wrong here. And the actual law of the land was the government was wrong, and there was authority in the land to say you are allowed to meet in church. So people do assume authority they don't have. So it's worth watching out for that. So it is a minefield, but it's like you'd have to have a specific example, and kind of in the specific example, it'd be obvious. Like a lot of Christians would be, it's fine to defend yourself, but you might get some pacifist ones that would let someone just beat them up. But it's like, but of course you would defend yourself. You would defend your son, even if you thought you shouldn't, even if it meant killing the person trying to interfere with your son. If that's what it took, you would do it, and then you would pay the consequences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, indeed. Yeah, and I think that there are, there are things, and we talked about it I talked about it with others, that it was sort of, the morality is written on our hearts. That was one of, and again, I'm misquoting, or maybe it's a Bible, a verse that refers to that, so that we do kind of innately know what is moral and what is immoral, so that when these decisions come up, it's like, yeah, you're gonna try and hide a Jew for the best, or try and save some of the Jews from being slaughtered, or the better one, or another one, more to my point, or more to my perspective, would be, like you say, if I see something happening to my son, like, of course I'm gonna do what I can to save it, even if it means being violent. That in that scenario, that's something that I can, I just kind of know that it's there. And then it comes to other parts of the, then there would be other parts, like then there would be parts of it that I would be in it, that I feel that are not moral, based on, again, what is what I seem to think is, or what I would say is written on my heart, as it were.
Yeah.
And so that those laws, or those things, it would be difficult to reconcile. Like, that just doesn't seem like a moral act to me. Like, I wouldn't have done it that way. If everyone is like misbehaving, I wouldn't slaughter them all. It's things like, Noah's flood, or, the Sodom and Gomorrah, or, places like this, that I wouldn't take such a violent action. But then it comes to, well, the God's morality is not accessible to us. Which then goes back, well, okay, well then, if it isn't, and like there are these laws that I just don't get, or things that need to be applied based on God's rules, but that I don't have access to that in the, what's written on my heart, or I just don't seem to have access to it. How that's, how to reconcile those two. It's like, okay, well, my morality is not the same as God's, so how and what situations where I can say, it's obvious that, you would be violent in this scenario for the greater good, as it were, without the Bible telling me so.
But if your morality is different to God's, yours is wrong and his is right.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you can come up with specific examples, we can talk about those. But we can only generally throw in silly examples.
Well, just, indeed, like trying to think of like a real world example, maybe. And something like the turn the other cheek example.
But the thing is, you would do it with, people would do it who aren't religious if they felt strongly. So, for example, like years ago in the 80s, I think it was the late 80s, there was a new tax called community charge, which then got nicknamed, what was it? Poll tax. It it wasn't poll tax, but it got nicknamed poll tax. And the Conservative Party tested it in Scotland because there weren't many Conservative voters in Scotland. And that was massively unpopular. And thousands of people refused to pay it. And then some people then got prosecuted. I think they probably went to prison and stuff and fined, whatever else. But there was such mass rebellion, it actually got dropped in the end because enough people rebelled against it. So anyway, so example I was thinking of, supposing in this country they said vaccines are mandatory, you have to be vaccinated, otherwise you go to prison. Then if somebody decides not to get vaccinated, that's not a biblical thing, that's just so they decide not to get vaccinated, but it means they have to go to prison. So it's like what you can do. There's some countries have conscription where you have to do so many years, 2-year service in the army. Some people will refuse on religious grounds. They might have to go to prison for 2 years, but they're just refusing, and the consequences are you go to prison. It's like, okay. So you're kind of still obeying, you're still under the authority of the law. So if I say I'm not going to do 2 years in the army for whatever reason, I've got a gammy knee, I don't want to. If the result is I go to prison for 2 years, I go to prison for 2 years. So I'm still under the authority. Whatever you do, you're still under the authority.
But if you rebel against it, like that was the passage you said.
But you're still going to be under the authority. You're still going to face whatever their consequences are.
And you go to jail, but also you're rebelling against God. Like, how did it go? Wait a second, I had it here. Romans 13, I mean.
That was Romans 13, yeah.
Those who do so will bring judgment upon themselves. Okay, I was thinking judgment of God. Okay, maybe that's just bring the judgment of the authority. If you do, you're going to go to prison. It doesn't necessarily mean, well, it says that when you rebel against the authority, it's rebelling against what God has instituted. Which, again, on a plain reading, I just feel like that means that God instituted the mask mandate or the vaccine mandate, or whichever one you said. That's kind of God telling you to put on a mask, taking a vaccine because Justin Trudeau said so. Which...
Yeah, that's stretching it a bit, really. Because it also, I think it's earlier on in Romans, it might not be Romans, but somewhere it says about, to massively paraphrase here, people get the government they deserve. So like America's been morally spiraling downhill for a few decades now, and America's a complete mess. But it's like, but that's what they deserve. Maybe not each individual deserves that, but generally the way the nation's gone, they're reaping what they sowed.
Mm-hmm.
But then the whole vaccine and mask thing is not a salvation issue. I know plenty of Christians that are very pro the vaccine. I know plenty that are against the vaccine.
They're pro, yeah, and there's things that come about. I wonder, the salvation thing. Maybe, and again, which of these, like, these are the authority things. These are not, as you say, salvation issues. So that, and a lot of the, or maybe a lot, or I'm not sure what percentage of the Old Testament laws would fall under that category, what you were saying earlier for that time and that place, or it was for anyway, anyway, salvation thing. Like I remember there was a couple of quotes from Jesus that I heard, and one was, that basically for salvation you have to hold God. Myself, how does it say it exactly? I don't remember exactly how it was stated, but basically the first couple of the 10 Commandments summarized was, you'll have one God and only one God. Oh, maybe it's freezing up a bit. And then the second one was treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah.
Jesus summed it up into two things. These two things you got to take care of. At another point, though, he said, all the old laws still count. Don't change a comma or anything. All the old laws apply today. You know what I mean? Like there was kind of two different quotes.
Yeah, he said, well, not one dot or one tittle would be cast away or whatever. I'm just trying to put these lights on. That's not working. And he did fulfill the law. So the law hasn't changed, but then he's fulfilled the law. We're not under the law, that law.
Okay.
the Ten Commandments law, the Jewish law. I mean, you'll get people misquoting the Bible. It's like all you need to do is look at the context, look at the verses before and after, and who's it spoken to, and what was the reason, and then it makes a lot of sense. And you can't just take this verse over here and apply it to yourself because it might have been a promise to Israel, for example, at that time doing a certain thing. But it does happen. Like, to take something out of context, Paul did say, "Let us sin so that grace may abound." But the full verse is along the lines of, "What then? Shall we sin so that grace may abound? God forbid." So when you look at the whole context, it's the opposite. But if you just take a little bit, you get the reverse. So it's so important to look at the context.
Okay. I didn't get the whole thing, but I quoted you as saying, "Let us sin so that grace may abound." I'm just kidding. Yeah,
that's going to be the video that you're just going to upload those few seconds.
Exactly. Just cut it out so it says exactly the wrong thing. No, but so I understand that there would be like how to read it and how to make sure we get what it's saying and not just one or two lines, but in its context. So, but for you then, what do you feel, or what do you think, or how do you understand that's what is needed for salvation then? Like, are there some laws that came from the Old Testament that weren't just situational, that weren't just for that population at the time? Or is kind of the whole packet, like you say, he kind of, Jesus, I mean, he fulfilled that, and now we have a new, I'm trying to think of the word, new, not a mandate, a new agreement. What's that word called when you have an agreement? Covenant. Thank you. Oh,
okay. So the salvation thing is that you believe that Jesus died for you, and so your sins are on the cross, and his righteousness is on you. So Jesus fulfilled the law, but if Jesus' righteousness is on me, effectively I fulfilled the law. I didn't, but I kind of did. Because when God looks at me, he'll see the righteousness of Jesus. So he would see Jesus' righteousness in fulfilling the law. My breaking of the law is on the cross with Jesus. So but because of what's been forgiven and what God's done for me, then naturally I will be more inclined to do good things, and I'll want to do good things. So there's nothing I can do that can add to it. And Paul makes it clear, if you try to add to grace by some works, then you make grace of null effect, and then you're damned. So it's like, you have to be clear that there's nothing you can do to earn salvation or make your salvation any better.
Except in accepting that Jesus died for your sins. Like that's it's one act that you have to do, or perhaps the only act.
So you repent, but repenting is like you repent, you turn to God. So you would want God to be the main focus in your life. But again, that's not from a works point of view. That's what you really want. So you'll hear people, like if you go online, you'll find testimonies of people who had a certain lifestyle. They found Christ and it just completely changed their life. And it's like, these things that used to be important to them, that's just not important anymore. And they're such changed characters. It's amazing. So so just don't get wrapped up in the mustn't do this, mustn't do that. But then if you know something is wrong, you would want to avoid doing it. Or if you find you're not wanting to avoid doing it, then that'd be something you'd pray about, maybe talk to other Christians about and work through so that you're not doing it. Like us saying, drinking 2 bottles of wine every night, it's not good to get drunk.
But doing it or not, like you may not want to do it, but it's not, you could do heroin every night.
It's not a salvation issue. There would be drunks that end up that are Christians and are saved. And there'd be teetotalers that aren't. It's not a salvation issue.
And for me, then that just anything can go into that category. Like murder is not a salvation issue.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. Except when you're dead, it's too late. So until you die, there's always a chance that you could be saved. So the extreme example is the thief on the cross. and at the beginning, if you look at the Gospels, he initially starts riling and having a go about to Jesus, making fun. But by the end, it's Lord have mercy on me.
Mm-hmm.
And he does change in the end. So that's like, you couldn't get any later than that, really.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's the funny thing. If someone commits suicide, they're not saved. Once they finish the act, it is too late for them. So that particular murder, that would make it impossible for you. But equally, you could be saved and commit suicide because of certain circumstances, and you wouldn't lose your salvation for committing suicide.
Mm-hmm. So it's always, yeah, and again, like, that's the system under which we're speaking. And so that it just a point of clarification, because I know that there's some that would, some apologists, and I really don't appreciate it in the way that it would, like, especially in the light of this, that they would say it as, that, you believe in justice, and that's kind of the opening of the door. So yeah, justice, that if you do something wrong, you should be punished for it. I believe in that. And that the only way, then it leads on in the argument that the only way to get justice in the way that you're thinking about it, in the way that I'm thinking about it, I mean, it's directed towards me, is, to have an ultimate judge. And, that makes some logical sense. But it's a justice, it's a kind of an equivocation of the word justice in that sense. Like, there's this ultimate justice, and then there's worldly justice. And they're just not the same thing. Whereas the ultimate justice, it has nothing to do with acts, as you say. It doesn't have to do with what you're doing necessarily. As you say, that there could be, acts will change depending on where your mental state is. But that it's not necessary. Like, you could, again, go through life injecting heroin and just killing people. And you feel really bad about it every time because, you accepted Jesus's sacrifice for us. But the acts themselves don't account to the final justice ledger or to the final judgment. Whereas the justice that, I would think about when thinking about justice would be, again, the murderer going to prison. Death penalty or life in prison, just, make sure he's paid some kind of price for what he did, so you can never be perfect. Even if you put him to death, there's no bringing the other person back. It's not, anyways, but that it's as close as we have to what I would call the earthly justice, I'll say. But that this other justice, it's just a different thing. And so we can't say that, you believe that murderers should go to prison, therefore, in this other system, that someone would get punished. But the rules are just not the same. Like, it's not the same in the household. Like, as long as my son admits that I am the most powerful one in the house, say, he can do anything he wants, and I'll call him a good boy. You know what I mean? As long as he puts me before all other adults or something like that, making a silly way to say it. So just that the way of, that what we're talking about is this justice in which, that the only way to salvation is through Jesus and accepting him, and that, it's not necessarily too late, or there's very few situations where it's not too late to be saved. Like,
it's only too late when you're dead.
Only too late when you're dead. And, the only way that we can guarantee that Hitler is burning in hell is if he put a bullet through his own head. That.
But he's not. He's not burning in hell if you read the Bible at the moment. But I know what you're saying. Yeah. Well, there's a second judgment, and I think it's Revelation 20. It talks about there's 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth, and then there's the great white throne judgment, and then all the dead are raised and judged, and they're judged on their works. But if you look in the Bible, if you're judged on your works, you've had it. You're damned. Because you can't be saved by your works.
Can't be saved by works. Yeah. No, and again, you just at this point, just clarifying these points so as to.
I'm going to put my light on and then my hat, I think, because I'd be too shiny. So no, it's getting dark here. Oh, look at the shine on my head. There we go. No, you can't. I'm doing it to save all the millions of viewers.
No, that's good. I wonder if it's where are we at? Almost 3 o'clock. Algebra. Well, can't believe this was the same. And I had a couple other points, just like questions came out. I'm like, well, that's not really about the Bible. That's more about like Asperger's. But 3 or 4.
You can ask an Ask Me question if you want.
Ask some questions. Well, I was just thinking maybe that would be a natural point to conclude. It's 3 o'clock. Well, it's 3 o'clock my time. I should probably get some work done. I've got a very nice job that allows for the flexibility where, as usually, I kind of have the inspiration comes later in the day, even in the night, and so I get a lot more done later. But I should probably go back and check to see if anyone's sent me any emails or something.
There's a video on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it, called The Goodometer. I could share my screen and show you now, but I don't know if the sound would come through right. Otherwise, I can just send you the link. You watch it. It's 3 minutes long. But it's a little sketch that kind of explains the way it all works.
Oh yeah.
It's just very simple. Shall I try sharing my screen, or do you want me to just send you a link?
We could try doing the screen sharing thing.
All right. I'll have to if I make that full screen and then share screen. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh my. No. Okay. I think it should work now.
All right. Now I need to optimize a video clip, share sound, screen 1. I'm aware the picture quality is quite poor, but they're all quite poor. Can you see the people lining up in white?
Yes.
Is that what you can see? Okay. Yes. Let me know if the sound's awful.
No, it's coming through.
Next. File, please. Some lying, some stealing, and some acts of kindness here and there.
I tried to live a good life.
Well, let's see how good. This way. Next. File, please.
Okay, I admit it. I did a lot of bad things.
Yes, I see.
But I've done good things too, to offset the bad things. Like one time I cheated on a test, but then I cleaned up trash in the park. That should balance out, right?
Let's find out. This way.
That should have balanced out, right? It should have balanced out.
Next. File, please. Impressive.
Oh, yeah. I devoted my entire life to make this world a better place. I dug wells in Africa. I donated blood every month. And I ran an orphanage in India. I mean, I just wish I could have done more.
And is this your subscription?
I only read the articles. I only read the articles. I only read the articles.
Next.
My mom goes to church.
Was baptized as a baby?
Take American Express, right?
Next. File, please. Whoa. Somebody's been busy. Well, let's get this over with. Sorry, I didn't know he was with you. Okay, step on the scale. Not you. Him.
Hey, wait a minute. That is totally not fair.
That's why it's called grace. Next.
You can understand that, right?
Yeah, no, that gets to it. That gets to it, straight to it. Yeah, no, and that's it. No, and essentially, yeah, no, that sums up like what we were talking about too. Like that it doesn't, good works don't count. That's not how that's not how the the scales of justice work when you get to the pearly gates or whatever. Mixing other stuff in. But no, and then well, I was thinking about what hell was. And again, there would be just different readings of what it could be from scripture, but that, that kind of, there's some ideas that hell, it's locked from the inside, that you can get out essentially if you want. You just got to go ahead and open the door. And so it doesn't, and for me, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense that, if you're like gnashing of teeth and just constantly getting burned. But then,
and
an infinite punishment, though, for me, like it could be just the difference. Like if you're, say, in God's presence, it's just like infinitely good. Like can't even just imagine it. It's like, it's not like apple pies every day. It's just a million times and infinite times better than that. Whereas if you were sitting, living a life exactly as you lived on earth, all those people that were just walked in, they would just go back and keep living their lives. Not go back, but they would go to a place called hell where they get everything they want. You get everything you want. You can have all the drugs, alcohol, and whatever fun. Nothing is even difficult anymore. You can run as fast as you want. All these things, you just feel so amazing. But perhaps not knowing that is infinitely worse than the reward. You know what I mean? Like hell could be so much better than what we have now. We could be comfortable. It's always beautiful out. And yet it's infinitely worse than a heaven that is infinitely good. And so even just that disparity between two things makes hell infinitely bad versus that. And yet it would be a place where, if you just want to, let go of all your carnal desires, like you're just having way too much fun. You're not going to go through that open door or go through the door, even though it's locked from the inside, right? You're not going to go through it because this is everything you want. It's just that you don't know because of that separation from God, how much better
I understand.
So
I understand what you're saying.
You see,
but that would go against what the Bible says. So maybe one of our sessions should be about hell.
Just hell.
What does the Bible say about hell? That might be a sensible thing because it's not what you're saying.
As you said, there's ones where it's like annihilation or, just separation. Other ones where I have heard like the gnashing of teeth and these kind of things. Or that hell doesn't even exist until after Judgment Day. Like no one's going to hell. Say Hitler committed suicide after doing shitty things. He never repented. He's not in hell yet. We have to wait.
Well, he's not been judged yet. We know he's not judged.
No one's been judged yet, essentially. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No one's actually in heaven, as I understood certain readings. And no one's in hell. They're just kind of like hanging out in that big white waiting room that we just saw there.
We would definitely need to look at what the Bible says about these things if you want, which is fine. But I'd need to prepare a few verses for you on that one.
Indeed, yeah. And I like that idea that we would have that, just one hellish episode. and just that it would have that preparation. We could say, okay, 30 minutes, say, or whatever, and go through or, have something prepared a little bit more than,
But even your understanding of hell or heaven wouldn't be a salvation issue. So there'd be some saved people that think it's annihilation. Some saved people think it's the devil with a pitchfork. This is for hell, of course. Neither of those understandings can stop you being saved. If you're saved, you're saved. Mm-hmm. There'd be some people that are saved that believe in a billion-year-old earth. Others believe in 6,000-year-old earth. If you're saved, you're saved.
Not a salvation thing. Yeah. What your view is on what hell looks like is not that it's not important, but it's not a salvation issue. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. But if you wanted to know, you could simply study the Bible and you'd find out what the Bible actually says.
Mm-hmm.
It might be different to what your minister says or your local vicar or whoever. But then you're a case of, okay, well, the vicar says this, but the Bible says that. Which one am I going to believe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, indeed. Like when you're looking at, is it true? And how to, yeah, is it true? I was going to say how to read it, but again, trying to read it as plainly as possible without, anyways, trying to read it as plainly as possible. But yeah, no, we can go through and exactly, like I'll do my studying on my side too before trying to pull out things and just say like, oh, I read this. This is what it kind of seems like it means to me. You know, like this is my plainest reading of it says that. Is there something I'm missing there, or you know, what year is, how you understand it? Say anyway, to try and come to a more coherent or try to come to that at least a similar understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no.
I mean, I absolutely accept logically some of my understanding of the Bible is probably wrong, which is fine. And hopefully one day somebody show me, no, you're wrong here, it's that. But they'd have to show me from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't go against the Bible because that's just being silly.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay. Well, no, that's good. Yeah, for me, I definitely, like I was saying, like our hills of thought. I like to think that I am flexible enough to change my mind if it's made obvious to me. I don't ever want to block a path just because like no, I don't want to know that because it goes against what I think already. I'll be flexible enough to be able to adjust what I think. So I think that's cool.
From what I've seen, your knowledge of the Bible is way better than the average person in this country.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a Canadian thing or something you've looked into or what, but you know stuff that people over here don't know.
Well, actually, I did a lot more. I actually won a Bible study award when I was young. And I was, I'm talking like 16 years old. I got to find it somewhere. It's called the Golden Ruler. And I won it for being, looking up passages and knowing where they were and stuff. So there was a time that I was very much more into it. But yeah, no, I think that from where I grew up, it was more religious. It's more religious than where I am now. But yeah, so I was absorbed. It was part of the culture, I suppose. And I paid attention in class. Yeah.
Well, I should let you go. It's 8 o'clock here. A 2-hour session.
That was good. That was good. I think like you said, there was a bit of a 50-minute tangent there in the middle, but in some part, I think we kept to some semblance of structure, and that I'll look back on it, and because I was marking them down, so I had kind of a question that I wanted to ask, and then you would give, and then we would go back and forth on that for a certain number of minutes, but that it started with at least something that I could call a title, and it kind of came. Right. Some of those things came to a conclusion, but no, I think we're getting more and more into actually talking about something and staying on topic. Which, but yeah, okay. Well, thank you for the discussion, and
absolute pleasure. Do it again before too long. I think 5 o'clock. Oh, it doesn't always work for you because does your son come over every lunchtime?
No, not every lunchtime. And we're trying to figure this out. I didn't think it was going to be that he would be there every lunchtime. I have one lunch hour meeting on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. But yeah, we're trying to figure out something else where like he comes home and I just like, that means I got to prepare a meal and then I got to do this thing. And then I don't have the time for these things. But yeah, so on general, I think we could find one of those times at lunch hour time, because I understand it's just before your supper time, after work time.
Yeah, like I can finish work pretty normally. If I know I need to finish at 5, I normally can. Then dinner's at 6. Then we're also constrained to the hour. We know what we're working with.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I like that idea, and hopefully, so we can. Yeah. Okay. Well, Like, do you have a day in mind? A certain day in mind?
No,
Or no?
no, but just generally, that's during the week. That's what works for me.
Okay.
If you wanted to do a Saturday could be slightly different, but my wife normally still does dinner for 6, which is great. It's nice to have routine when you've got a house full of Aspies.
Yeah, the routine, I agree. Okay. Well, okay. I should take my.
You don't have to decide now. Just shoot me a
Exactly,
message
yeah.
sometime. Say,
I was
how
gonna
about
say
this date?
Tuesday or Thursday next week, but I should check my calendar before committing to that. But yeah, I think that. But anyways, okay. Well, we'll text. I will try and finish writing up these points that I have. Maybe I'll put it in a.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I meant to do. I'll put it in a Google Doc and then to share with you, so that we can.
So I need a Google account for that. I've got one somewhere.
I'm
Right.
not sure.
Because how
I'm
do you
not
share with
sure
me
you-
otherwise?
I think you just need an email address. Oh, maybe you need a
Okay.
Google account. I don't know if you. I'll try and send you the thing and see if you can access
Okay.
it without a Google account. Anyways, we'll figure out some way of sharing it back and forth. The things, yeah.
Yeah, I have got a Google account, but it's full of absolute trash and it's been shared around a lot. But
hmm
I think I should do better access it through that. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, I will get on that. I already said I was going to do it. And I'll really have to do that. That document and look through at least this video to try and cut out maybe 1 or 2 little chunks to see what it looks like. Yeah.
Something you can listen to when you go to sleep. Having trouble sleeping, just play one of these and close your eyes.
It's gonna be like a part of our catch line for no one who's awake. Anyways, yeah, okay, stop playing around. All right, very good. Well, yeah,
Could be better than listening to a thunderstorm.
better than listening to the first.
Because you can listen to thunderstorms to sleep or listen to rain to sleep. If you go online, on like YouTube, there's 8-hour videos of rain to help you sleep. Just listen to it.
Sleep aid with 2 Aspies. Sleep aid.
Yeah. Sleeping with the Aspies.
Sleeping with the Aspies. That's funny too. Yeah, we'll play around with subtitles anyways. Okay. Aspies. I'll try to write these things down. Yeah.
Aspie sleep therapy, that works. Then.
They're all funny. I like these are all good ones, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the right place. Oh, no. Sorry. I realized I wrote down my shopping list on this paper here. Shouldn't lose that. It's neither here nor there. All right, very good. Well, have a good
Right.
evening, and we'll talk to
I'll
you.
see you again.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.